Also heavily symbolic is like the way the trees are pitch black against the sunlight, very, you know, but also they use there's a famous book about cinematography, which is sort of, you know, the combination of camera and light and angle and all this stuff, and where you're putting things in the frame. It's called Painting with Light, and you see them doing that in this movie. It's almost like they are painting with light. When you see the shot when the kids get to the old lady's house, and there's like these beautiful clouds, these fluffy clouds, and these beams of light coming from the clouds. It's beautiful. Um, or the light on the water is just beautiful. Every frame of painting, right? You could print that out, put it on your wall. It would be lovely. You can really imagine that shot of the clouds with the beams. You could sell it as a postcard, put a quote from the Bible on it. So they're filling this large. It's symbolic, but they're also using the light to just make beautiful images, the very dramatic images. One of my favorite uses of light in the movie, I don't think has a larger symbolic value. I just think it looks good, and I don't know how to teach it. It's a very small scene, but Powell, Reverend Powell, is on his way hunting those children, and he stops by a campfire with all these guys, and he talks to them. The only light is from the fire, which it lights them up like this. And so around them, the light on their faces is very bright from the fire, but they're in pitch black, stars up above, and everything else is drenched in darkness. So you get these like light on this side of the face, but this side of the face is in shadow. It's almost happening to me now. Sunset's coming. It's very, very dramatic. It looks like a painting. If you know Rembrandt, look up a Rembrandt painting. Just Google search Rembrandt image, and see what kind of paintings come up. And you'll see that Rembrandt uses light to make these very dramatic crowd scenes, or crowds. I mean, you know, a group of 10 people or 15 people or something. But it's the same thing they're doing in this movie. It's incredibly beautiful. And I don't know what to say, except that, like, part of what movies are doing is creating these beautiful images. And one of the things they can use, the most common thing they're going to use to make beautiful images is just hot people with their clothes off, or beautiful, expensive costumes. But you can also make beautiful images with light. Um, and this is one thing this movie does really better than almost any movie I can think of, is it makes these incredibly beautiful, beautiful images sort of light with light. Like around the house, it uses the fog, for example, right? Because one thing that fog does, if you're familiar with fog, I'm sure you've seen fog before, but like it catches the light, and so it creates this kind of weird gray glow around everything. And it's used to beautiful effect when they show the house covered in fog. It's quite lovely. Um, all right, cool. Yeah. All right, cool. And the light on Shelley Winters' character before she is killed by Reverend Powell, um, is very. It makes her like a saint. She's like almost holy, and she's had this very complicated, you know, situation. But the movie, just before she dies, she achieves a kind of holy heavenly knowledge, and so she's bathed in this beautiful, completely unrealistic light as she lays in her bed the moment before she's murdered. It's like a halo almost. Cool. All right. Um, let's talk about some. I think we should talk about some other things here. Um, cool. The structure of the story. I mentioned that I talked about the acts: Act One, Act Two, Act Three. This movie has a pretty simple structure, right? Act One. Um, Act One is the dad gives the money to the kids, and then he's arrested, and then he meets the preacher, and then the preacher heads over to meet the kids, and Act One ends really when the preacher marries the kid's mom. When he marries her mom, the game changes, because the first section of the movie, of Act One, has really just been about, let's teach us who these characters are, and that's where we learn, you know, what kind of person the preacher is and what a bad guy he is, and we also learn how nervous and under pressure Shelley Winters' character is, the kid's mom. How Icy loves to pressure her all the time, and she needs a husband, she needs a man. Once he marries her, though, the story changes, because then it's not a story about sort of, you know, the exit of the good dad and the entrance of the bad dad, and that's a bigger theme that we'll talk about in a second. But it becomes a story of how is he going to get these kids to tell him where the money is. So the middle section of the movie is all about where is the money, and he's bothering the kids, and he's stressing. He tries all kinds of different. He tries bribery, he tries games, he tries threatening them, he tries yelling at them, he tries turning them against each other, and that's the whole middle section of the movie. Um, and he's after the money, and he finds out where the money is, and the kids run away. And Act 3 really begins with the entrance of the nice old lady who takes care of the kids at the end. You can see the gear shift, right? You want to think about, like, Act 1 is one kind of story, and Act 2 is another kind of story, and Act 3 is another kind of story. So if Act 1 is just sort of establish the situation, and Act 2 is where's the money, and then how does he get it? Because the kids run away with it and he chases them. Act 3 is a different thing, because Act 3 is really Powell versus that old lady. I forget blanking on all the characters' names right now. I'm sorry. I don't know what the hell is wrong with my brain. So it's about Act 3 is Powell versus the old lady. And that's a very different. He knows where the money is. He just can't get to it because she's guarding him. That becomes Act 3. Cool. All right, I think we're doing pretty good. Let's keep going with this. I like it. So that's the basic structure of the film. You always want to look for structure in film. When you're watching a movie, and you can do this right now. Here's a very simple thing you could do on the discussion board. And hell, if you want something easy to do, you can do it more than once. Go get a movie and take a look at it. Take a look at where the movie is around like the 30-minute-ish mark, and where the movie is around the 90-minute mark if it's a 2-hour movie, and see if you can tell me where the act breaks are. Tell me what's the difference between Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. You can pick any movie and do that with. Very simple thing for your discussion boards. I'd be interested in hearing you kind of divide up movies like that. They pretty much all divide. Even 2001, as crazy as it is, has 3 acts. They're really odd. Act 1 is the Monkees, and Act 2 is Floyd, and Act 3 is Jupiter. But that's 3. It's got 3 like distinct sections, but of course it really changes characters in those sections too. And it's also, this is an art to say where the act breaks. Someone could disagree with me and say, I think the act break is over here. I think it's over here. And it's debatable. So it's not a science. We're not like locating the exact moment of it, but you want to kind of keep an eye out for where those act breaks are, because it helps to think about how stories are put together, particularly if you are a creative writer. Very, very important to study stories and see how they're made so that one day you can make one. Not that you have to do what these stories do, but that learning how they're made will help you make your thing, whether you want to follow the rules or not. It's the principles. Don't say rules, principles. If you want to follow the principles or not, that's up to you. But it's very useful, I think, to understand basically where they come from and how they're put together. Okay, cool. What else do I want to talk about? It's all theme. It's just like all theme. I usually try to divide this into little sections and talk about different kinds of things, but it's really just like a lot of theme. I don't have a ton to say about the music in this movie. I love how it's overly dramatic. I love the sort of bum bum ba. It's a big dramatic score, which I really enjoy. But there's one bit of music that I really love in the movie. And it's when the old lady, he comes leaning, leaning, bum, 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 the everlasting Lord. And then the old lady starts singing. And she's singing the same song, but her lyrics are a little bit different. She sings, leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus. And it's a fascinating moment in the movie. The two of them they're battling it out in song, almost like it's a musical. And the difference between the songs is striking. They're both Christian. They're both religious songs, Christian songs, but her one mentions Jesus. It's like his religion is some kind of scary Old Testament kind of vengeance, violence, kill everybody, women in particular, anti-woman kind of thing. But that her religion is informed by Jesus. And that's the difference between the two of them, is that sort of he is Christianity, but he's missing the core of it. And she's Christianity, but she remembers what it's supposed to be built on, which is Jesus' loving kindness and nonviolence. And we'll talk about her violence later. But it's built on nonviolence. It's built on caring for others. It's built for looking out for the little ones, for looking out for the people on the edge of the night, as I like to say. I stole that from David Bowie. So his religion he calls it Christianity, but there's no Jesus anywhere in there. Why? Because there's no kindness, there's no comfort, there's no taking care of people. He's just a murderer. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and say this. You're welcome to discuss in the comments the extent to which the Reverend Harry Powell was like the modern day Republican Party in America. they're supposed to be Christian, like Reverend Powell is Christian, but they seem to be missing some of the key tenets like taking care of the underprivileged and kindness and etc. So, you're welcome to discuss the extent to which Reverend Powell makes an excellent metaphor for the modern day Republican Party in America. I'll see you in the next video.